Hey everyone. I've been exploring today. New city, new layouts to learn. I'm getting good at memorizing cities. Thank you all for your support and suggestions. Once again, these are all past events, but I'm taking your ideas into consideration for how to fight back here in the present. A few of you have offered to help in other ways, and I appreciate the offers, but this is my fight. I ruined so many lives by involving other people. No, David is mine to ruin, even if I die trying. Also, I've looked back over it and realized I forgot something. But now I've forgotten what it is, so forgive me if I make a correction in the next part. Another thing, I try to talk to as many people as possible as I can in the comments, unless my reply will have to contain spoilers, but live events have forced me to limit that interaction because of time and the sheer number of you. Forgive me. Now I'll continue. I called Clark's mom right away. I had their home phone number because last Christmas, Clark invited me to his house for Christmas dinner since my parents and I were still fighting, and pretty harshly. He'd already gone home while I was at work, so he gave me the phone number in case I got lost, and he didn't answer his cell. She was devastated and asked me a million questions. It was very, very uncomfortable. She agreed to drive down that day, post bail for him. She lived a few hours away, so she said she'd be there around 5 p.m. The county we were in didn't allow online payments via credit card. Cash only. So she had to physically drive down. In the middle of the phone call, I missed a call from a number that wasn't in my contacts. I called back, and they answered immediately. Hi, I missed a call from this number. Hi, is this Xander? Yeah, who's this? Xander, this is Katie's mom. Your parents gave me your number. Shit. Hi, I can't talk now. I'm in a rush and she cut me off. Have you heard from Katie? She didn't come home last night. Your mom gave me your number. Please tell me she's with you. She's not. I'm not sure where she is. I have to go. I'll call you back. I hung up the phone. I didn't want to talk to her about Katie because I was about to file her missing person report. I walked over to the reception desk. I was just talking to an officer, and then he arrested my friend and walked off. I need to talk to the officer on my other case about identity fraud. What case number? A while later, I was sitting in one of their interrogation rooms after asking for a private meeting. Detective Hernandez sat on the opposite end of the metal table. My 2 case files were on the table in front of him. He was glancing through them, trying to familiarize himself with the break-in report. A tape recorder sat between us. He pressed a button on the recorder and the tape started rolling. He stated his name, my name, my case numbers, the date, and the time. Alright, go ahead. Okay, so I submitted a report for identity theft a while ago, and I haven't heard anything about it. Well, the FTC can take some time to respond. Well, now there's a new report for a break-in in my apartment. I was talking to the other officer earlier and told him that I have a suspect for both crimes. Yes. The detective said he was looking over one of the folders. He had both cases on the table. One David King, correct? Looks like it was written in your file. Yes, David King. He used to be a friend of mine, but now he hates me and he's been targeting me. Targeting you how? Almost recently, he's kidnapped my girlfriend Katie. That caught his attention. He pulled a pen from his front pocket. When was this? He asked, setting the pen on a blank page. Last night, when we went to go graffiti his house, he chased after us and pinned me to a table. He called someone on the phone and had them put Katie on. I heard her voice and he claimed he kidnapped her to motivate me. Motivate you to do what? I told him all about the DARE conversation, then about the junk mail, my online accounts, the credit card fraud, my parents' credit being targeted, my car's windows, the break-in, my bank account being emptied, the graffiti incident, Katie's phone call, protecting Clark's bank account, and now Clark's arrest. Hernandez took copious notes. It just keeps escalating. I watched Hernandez carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. I couldn't tell what he believed. I need more details about this phone call, he said at last. What did she say? What did you say? And what did you hear on the other end? We talked through everything for an hour, and nothing I said was useful for finding Katie. But Hernandez sat back after I finished. Xander, I have to be honest, this all sounds very loose. I don't mean the crimes themselves, I mean the connections linking David to all these crimes. There's nothing that can be done about the identity theft until the FTC has finished their investigation. The break-in, broken windows, hacked accounts, and empty bank account will have to produce their own evidence to prove that David committed each one. Up to you. This is all one timeline of events, but to the law, they are separate crimes that have been treated with no regard for past actions. His tone was reasonable and concerned. I believe you, but I can't make an arrest without witness or hard evidence. Your story is circumstantial at best, but I do believe you when you say they are connected. Finally, someone believes me. Well, what have the texts said about the break-in? They said they found a few fingerprints. All the fingerprints found belong to each of you and a few other people who used to live there. According to the file, they've all been confirmed as past residents. And what about the ATM camera? Well, that's something unfortunate, he said, looking through his folder again. We got a call from your bank to file a fraud report. It was smart of you to go through the bank to report the fraud. My boss made it a priority, and since it was your same name, it was added to our file on your identity theft. I've been the one personally working on your identity theft case. And once I received the case, I called the convenience store that the ATM was in. They gave me the brand of ATM so I could request the footage from the company. Problem is, that ATM doesn't have a camera. What? How can an ATM not have a camera? Not all brands do. Some ATMs don't have cameras built in, and that was one of them. Someone logged onto your online bank account right before the ATM transaction and moved all your money from savings into your checking account. They also increased your ATM withdrawal limit to $5,000 while online, which was above the $3,500 you had in your account. And normally you can only withdraw $500 per day. What about the store's cameras? I asked for them to bring the footage down. They said they'll be in today. Where is the store? I want to see this for myself. No. I may have the inclination to lean towards your theory, but I will collect the evidence myself, and a court will decide. You steer clear. Well, then drive down yourself right now. God damn it. And he stood slightly, his hand reaching for his belt automatically. Calm down, he said, looking me in the eyes. I have no money. My car windows are smashed. I can't repair them. My rent will be due and I'll have no way to pay. I can't get to work without a car. I can't drive. I need my money back. Hernandez sighed, sitting back down. I breathed heavily. If David is the one who used your information to commit credit card fraud, why would he steal a measly $3,500 from you? Because he's dead set on ruining my life. That's the dare. He's taken it too far. Further than any sensible person would. He's sick. I just wanted to stop. I cried a little, and Hernandez let me sit in silence for a minute, with tears rolling down my cheeks. What about Katie? I asked after a while. Well, the kidnapping is going to be top priority. That's the one case that has a witness, which is you. I won't be working on it, but someone in a different section of the department will be. The other detective will want to interview today and get started. Let's do it then. Hernandez stepped out and returned a while later with the detective. Detective White came in and probed me with hundreds of questions. Where did she work? Who were her friends? How long had we been together? What did I last see her do? And do her parents know? Questions like that. When I brought up David in the phone call, he leaned in and asked me the same questions about what I'd heard, what we'd said, and anything I could remember. Again, I didn't remember anything helpful. I'll need to bring David in for questioning, Detective White said. Your testimony is decent, but we'll need more evidence for conviction. I can't arrest him because I need more proof. If we arrest him without enough proof, he'll walk free and can't be tried again. You had enough proof to arrest Clark? Clark? I was just talking with an officer who said David called in and told you Clark graffitied his house. All he had to do was call, and he got arrested. And David White excused himself to go find out more about what happened, and he came back 5 minutes later. David has more proof on that case. Photographs of the graffiti, photographs of Clark coming up to the house, his own testimony about recognizing Clark, and a bruised face. Clark's hand is also cut up, which corroborates his story. We noticed it when we booked him. This is the kind of evidence we need to convict in a kidnapping. Right now, we have your testimony stating you said hello to Katie on the phone, and that David said he'd kidnapped her. We definitely need more evidence to convince the jury. But I was with Clark. In the pictures you weren't. Well, then they're fakes. An expert will check them and determine that. I sat back in my chair, feeling defeated. Detective White thanked me for my testimony and left to contact Katie's parents. Detective Hernandez sat back down, watching me as tears welled up in my eyes again. Let me pay for your windows. It won't matter. He'll break them again the next day. He's broken them more than once. Every time I repair them, they're smashed again the next day. I might have an idea, but I'll need approval from my boss. If you haven't heard of entrapment in the context of a police investigation, it's a legal defense that's used when evidence can be shown that an officer induces a criminal to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. When the defense is used, there are two differing views. In some courts, if a defendant uses entrapment as a defense, the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the criminal was not entrapped. In other courts, the defense has to prove that it was entrapped. The state I was in required the prosecution to do the proving. Hernandez recognized that his plan would be construed as entrapment, and he explained this to me as we walked to his boss's office. He told me that since David had already established a pattern of breaking my windows, Hernandez could set up surveillance in my car and just wait for David to commit the crime he was going to do anyway, since I had repaired the windows twice and had kept the receipts that would serve as good evidence that the crime had been repetitive. The idea made me hopeful. I sat outside his boss's office while I walked in and presented this idea. When he walked out, he gave me a thumbs up. David would never know what hit him. Hernandez drove me to my house, where I picked up my car and took it to the repair shop. He followed me over there and paid. We drove to my work in Hernandez's car while they worked on it. Hernandez orders us some lunch, and I talked to my boss. I told him about my bank account getting hacked and that I needed to cancel direct deposit. And luckily payroll was next week, so they'd be able to change the method of payment by the next paycheck. I told him about my situation, and Hernandez backed me up. He agreed to pay some of the wages in advance out of the store's petty cash until payday came, and I was to pay him back. I thanked him profusely for helping me out, and I apologized for having to call in sick that day. I walked out with a full stomach, $335, and a calm mind. With any luck, we'd catch David tonight. Hernandez took me back to the shop, and I picked up my car. I tried to pay for the money I'd received, but he refused, saying I could pay him back after this was all resolved. He told me that he'd be at my house later on to start the surveillance and just park my car on the street. I thanked him again before we parted. It was about 3 p.m. when I got home. I parked my car several blocks away and next to several others for camouflage. I didn't want David to find it and smash the windows before tonight. The walk was hot. The cool air conditioning welcomed me into my house. Excuse me, someone asked timidly as I unlocked the front door. I peeked my head back outside. There was an elder woman on the landing, probably in her 40s. Yes? You live in that apartment, I'm guessing? Yeah. I'm Mrs. Watson. I believe you and my son are roommates. Oh, hello. Whose mom are you? Isaac. He and I were supposed to be driving out of state to visit family yesterday, but he never showed up. A chill ran up my spine. I've called him 1,000 times, but he hasn't answered. I've been standing here ringing the doorbell for a while, but no one's been home. Can I go knock on his door? I considered asking her to leave or telling her that I wasn't comfortable with her coming in, but I knew that would be suspicious. I knew what we were going to find. I told her to come in. Instantly the smell overtook us. She tried to be polite and not offend me, probably thinking we were typical college guys living like pigs. She walked down the hall to Isaac's room. Oh God, she muttered. The smell must have been horrific right by the door. I shuddered, but went down the hall towards her. She knocked. Isaac? No answer. As I expected. Isaac, it's Mom. I think the smell made her start to panic because she was pounding harder on the door. Isaac, open up, please. She pleaded desperately. I sighed. Gently, I guided her away from the door and braced myself. I took a running start and slammed into the door. It bent heavily, but the latch didn't break. I tried again. And again. On the fourth try, the door wrenched open, and I was inside. The smell. Oh, God. I don't know how many times I can tell you about it. You wouldn't understand. This was one of those moments where I'll remember every detail forever. Isaac's room was a mess. There were 3 bookshelves that likely used to have tons of books, but the shelves were torn apart and books scattered across the room. His computer desk had papers scattered across it and cups knocked over. The window was darkened by a blackout curtain used for gaming. The large gaming computer under the desk hummed, and the monitor showed stars moving around for a screensaver. Isaac was on the bed, his face pale and patchy with purple lines. His arms and legs were white and also bruised. An extension cord trailed off the bed, the middle being wrapped around his neck several times. Some flies nested on his body, flying to another spot occasionally. Mrs. Watson entered the room and screamed. I just stood there, staring at Isaac's body. David had jumped to murder. I called the police and tried to get Miss Watson to leave the apartment and preserve the crime scene. She refused and sat sobbing next to Isaac's bed. She was afraid to touch him. The police came immediately and escorted Mrs. Watson and I out of the apartment. The next few hours were a blur of questions and police. Detective Hernandez showed up and looked inside. And techs were carrying in cameras and briefcases full of equipment. After a while, they started to carry out some of Isaac's belongings in bags. His gaming computer took 2 techs to carry out. I sat on the curb nearby, not being allowed to leave by the head officer who was running the scene. Hernandez sat next to me. They broke open your other roommate's door. All his belongings are there, but your roommate isn't. Do you know where he is? No. I never talked to him much. Were you close to Isaac? No, but still. I know. Do you think David's behind this too? Probably. I replied, feeling numb. We'll still carry out the surveillance. Don't worry. They'll analyze Isaac's body, and if they find so much as a fleck of skin that we can link to David, we'll nail him. No criminal is perfect. Hernandez left me alone, and I thought over the situation. Then a car parked nearby, and out stepped Clark with his mom. I jumped up and ran over to him. Oh my God, Clark, are you okay? I'm fine. Posted bail. It was only $350, so not awful at all. I thought you said you'd be fine. You're by 5. I asked Clark's mom. Side note, I don't remember the exact time she got there, but I do remember she was there earlier than expected. I was going to meet them both at the station. I may have broken a few speed limits, she said. What happened? Clark's face suddenly went cold when he saw all the police near our door. Isaac was found in his room. to specify what state he was in. Oh, Jesus Christ. Clark gasped, putting his hands on his knees. He started hyperventilating, and his mom worriedly put a hand on his back. Clark, honey, just let's go for a drive. We can get your stuff later. Your stuff? He's moving out, his mom said sharply. He told me all about this sick game your friend is playing. I don't think it's very funny. It's not funny. It never was. This asshole is trying to ruin my life. It's not a game. A few of the policemen turned to watch me from the balcony. Her jaw tightened and she guided her hyperventilating son into the car. They drove away, and I was left in the middle of the street, watching my best friend leave me to handle David alone. Hello again, everyone. As I do in every new post, thank you for your support and encouragement. I read every single comment and reply to as many as I can, or have something useful to reply to. David is nowhere to be seen in this new town, thankfully, so I don't think he's realized that I've moved on. I've had some time to keep figuring out where things are in this town. Once again, just reminding everyone, these are past events. We haven't caught up to the present day yet. I also want to remind everyone that I'm writing these each day. No, I don't have parts built up, so I can't make them longer or release them all at once. Sorry guys. A few people keep asking, so I'm just clarifying. Oh, one more thing. As I was reading every comment, like I do, I noticed one person whose birthday is today, and they got downvoted for suggesting this could make a good manga series, so I just want to wish them a public happy birthday. Happy birthday. Let's begin. The police took Isaac out in a body bag. Mrs. Watson left with the body, still sobbing uncontrollably. I was told that I couldn't go into my apartment until they were completely done with the crime scene. No, they didn't know when that would be. They suggested a hotel room, which I laughed at. I asked if I could grab a blanket and pillow from my room so I could just sleep in my car. They reluctantly brought it to me, and I gagged when I grabbed them. They smelled like death. Hernandez offered to give me a motel room, or let me stay at his place, or even begged me to call a friend and stay there. I refused all three. I walked to my car and ignored Hernandez. I was still too mad about everything and devastated that Clark had left. Besides, we couldn't do surveillance on the car while I slept in it. I marched all the way to my car and slammed the door hard. I decided I didn't feel safe parking near my house to sleep, so I went to Walmart, their parking lot, for the night. It was as if fate had finally begun to root for me. I was walking towards the Walmart entrance from the parking lot to buy some food, when I was only a few cars away. An armored truck pulled up. The ones that carry money over to the bank, you know what I mean. And who do you think stepped out of that truck? David fucking King. I strafed to the left and got behind a car, using the back tinted windows to observe. He was laughing with his partner, who got out of the passenger side. I was too far away to hear what they were saying, but I definitely didn't recognize the partner as anyone I knew. It was obviously paranoia, but I wondered if he could be the one who had made Katie speak into the phone. The two of them walked into Walmart, and I took note of the company that owned the truck, and then I had an idea. My first real idea on how I could fight back, now that I knew where David was right this second. I sprinted back to my car. A little while later, I pulled up to Mrs. K's house. I got out and looked around, making sure David hadn't somehow beaten me here or followed me. I I had to hurry. Who knew how much longer his shift would last? I knocked on the door, and Mrs. K opened it. "Hello, Xander." "Hi, Mrs. K. Can I come in?" 5 minutes later, I was rifling through David's room. Had to hurry. Had to find something useful and fast. I told Mrs. K that years ago I'd let David borrow a video game and just now remembered and wanted to pick it up. She'd happily let me into his room and find them. I had booted up his ancient laptop, but it was taking forever to load. Why the hell hadn't he bought a new laptop with all the money he stole? That would have made good evidence. I glanced at every paper I saw, hoping for something. Written plans, a checklist, a receipt, anything. Every paper I found was normal, from what I could see. His room was a disaster, which worked in my favor. He may have dropped something incriminating and not known about it. I stuffed every flash drive I could find into my pockets as I went. He had 4 of them laying around. They may have incriminating evidence on them. The laptop finally booted, and I instantly tried to log in. No luck. Password protected. I should have known, considering how tech-savvy he'd been in hacking my accounts. In fact, all the incriminating data was probably on the laptop. He wouldn't bother printing anything out. That game gave me an idea. I picked up the laptop and flipped it over. A toolbox laid under the table, and I snatched a screwdriver from it. Using the screwdriver, I went to work disassembling the laptop. When I finished, I held his hard drive in my hand. "I will ruin you, David King," I whispered. As I reassembled the laptop, something caught my eye under the bed. A box. Furrowing my eyebrows, I pulled it towards me. It was a shoebox with dust covering the top. A few spots were less dusty, where someone had handled the lid. I opened it slowly and peered inside. It contained a 1/4-inch thick stack of papers all bound together by a binder clip. The box was too small to let the pad lay flat, so it curled in the box. The pages were old and worn. They'd clearly been handled frequently. I lifted it out and noticed that it looked like research paper. The front had a title in the middle of the page and an author at the bottom. Psychological evaluation for David Edward King. The bottom of the page had the name of the institute and psychologists that had done the study, as well as the year. I did the math, and the evaluation must have been done when he was 16. Jackpot. I stuffed it under my shirt as best as I could hide its square form. The laptop was set back in its place as if it were never moved. David would know something was wrong eventually, but not until he booted it up. I gave a last look around and wondered if there was anything else I should do. With no decent ideas, I left David's house. Mrs. K gave me a brownie on my way out. On the drive back to Walmart, I tried to come up with a plan. I couldn't take this to the police because it was illegally obtained evidence and wouldn't be admissible in court. I knew that from a bunch of crime shows. I had to get all the evidence myself and somehow get it into the police hands legally. When I parked at Walmart, it still wasn't that late. I walked inside carrying the flash drives and psychological evaluation with me. I used the demo computers to look at the contents of the flash drives. Looking back now, I'm amazed that they let USB sticks work on demo machines. The first flash drive had old high school papers on it. Nothing useful there. The second and third drives were bootable drives that could boot Linux. I didn't expect everyone to understand what that means, but it's not important. It was the fourth flash drive that I had my first breakthrough of evidence. It contained a single text file that had been edited the day before. As I read through it, I realized it was a conversation. David would write a message and hide the flash drive in a predetermined place. Then the kidnapper would go pick it up and read the message. The process would reverse when the kidnapper had a message to pass along. Now, a lot of you will probably say, well, why didn't they just use encrypted emails? It's much faster and safer. If they had used any kind of network to communicate, some internet service provider, some cell phone provider like Comcast, would have a log entry of the messages being exchanged, even if the data was encrypted. Encrypted data is never 100% secure. If you dedicate enough processing power, you can crack any encryption. It may take thousands of years in some cases, but could still be cracked. With our current advances in computing power, that could change to be even faster. David and his partner had reduced their risk of being caught by limiting who had access to the information. If you send an email to me via Reddit, I'm not the only one that gets the message. It's passed through several servers and routers who all make a note that a message passed through at a specific time. It leaves a trail. Unless you can erase the logs on those servers, you leave a trail no matter how you send your data. There is certainly a risk that someone could find the flash drive, plug it in, and find all the data like I had, but that could be reduced by choosing decent hiding places. If you plan to pass messages this way, don't leave it laying around your room. Especially don't leave it unencrypted. I still don't know why it wasn't encrypted. The text file would have a line, then skip a line, and add another where the next response was. I don't have the flash drive or copy of the conversation anymore, but I'll have to paraphrase as accurately as I can remember. I'll use bullet points here. It'll be easier for you. Payment received? Yes. Last half of payment comes when this is all over. How long? Depends on him. Good? Good. No suspicion. A quiet grab. Was she harmed? She fought. A couple bruises. Otherwise fine. There were some extra lines in between, marking the start of a new conversation. Any new information? A kidnapping report has been filed with the police. Change locations every 2 days as previously discussed. Are you well supplied? We have enough in the truck to keep moving and stay operational. Good. With any luck, this will all be over once he makes an irreversible mistake. I shuddered as I closed the text file. That was damning evidence. I checked who the owner of the file was. It was blank. Well, that would have been too convenient. I googled what kind of cable I would need to hook the hard drive up to a computer and bought an SATA to USB cable. I was thankful that the demo computers were in an aisle out of view of employees in the tech center. To people who don't know technology, I'm convinced I look like a hacker. Let me give you another lesson on technology, since I seem to be giving so many in this series. When you boot your computer, it asks for a password if you've set one. Without that password, you can't access the hard drive unless you do some hacked up workaround. In some cases, however, you can unplug the hard drive and plug it into another computer instead. The new computer will treat it like a regular external hard drive, and voila, you have access. Unfortunately, David had encrypted his entire hard drive, so it was useless to me at the moment until I had some spare time to either guess the password or find someone who could crack it. Going to the summer supply section of the store, I took a seat and pulled out the psychological evaluation and looked over the cover page again. Psychological evaluation for David Edward King. I hope you realize that I've removed the institution, author, and date for privacy's sake. I spent an hour skimming the contents, using the table contents to navigate. I constantly had to look up lengthy words on my phone, but I was beginning to understand what went on in David's sick little mind. I won't give you an entire rundown of his whole life, but the report contained transcribed interviews from his parents about incidents, a psychologist's observations while holding David in confinement, and a general list of events that had occurred in David's life that may have traumatized him. These are the ones I remember. David set fire to animals constantly and poked them with various objects. When a snake lunged and bit him once in his backyard, his mother came out to find him whipping the limp body against a tree, guts spraying everywhere. His only explanation was, "It tried to hurt me." He was found designing traps for rabbits and other animals that were expertly hidden and designed. He claimed to have never looked at Wilderness Guide to make them. His mother later found entire notebooks containing designs for traps. The traps were aimed at getting both animals and humans. His father died when he was 12, which affected him greatly. He became quiet and reserved for years. The first day of high school, however, he changed overnight and became charismatic, energetic, and clever. In middle school, one of his teachers had been interviewed after an incident. She had noticed that 3 boys had begun picking on David, but he quietly took whatever they gave him. One day, she came to class, and all 3 boys sat ramrod straight and stared straight ahead. They didn't dare look at David, and David was smirking and trying to hide it. Finally, let me try to summarize what the psychologist wrote about David. David seems to have a constant need to harm other living things and cause suffering. Once, in my office, I found him stomping his feet on the floor. I asked what he was doing, and he admitted that he was trying to crush anything microscopic that could be on the floor. I seriously fear that he will not be able to remain in society without serious medication and therapy. I had no idea that David had any of these problems or experiences. He and I had met when we were both 17. He'd been exactly as the report described: charismatic, energetic, and clever. I felt blind for not seeing any red flags, but I knew that he had hidden them well, intentionally. The psychologist made another entry a month later. David seems to have performed a complete 180 in his mood, actions, and demeanor. He has been polite and kind every time he has come in, and is very capable of being fully functional. The sentence struck me as odd. Months of statements about David's instability, and suddenly this comes out. I googled the professor's name. He died in a car crash the same year as the publication date of this evaluation. Son of a bitch. I reread the very last entry. I recognized the words for what they were. A coerced recommendation to re-enter society. I could feel the psychologist's words scream through the page. Good God, he's going to kill me. No wonder David was so prepared. No wonder he was always ahead of me. No wonder his expression had spread such an absolute fear. Through me, that night he chased Clark and I. He was insane. He designed traps. He knew what made people and animals tick. He enjoyed inflicting pain on them, and not just that, but watching them suffer. David was absolutely insane. Insane, but functional. That's what made him dangerous. I hunkered down in my seat and brought up a Word document on my phone where I could take notes. Then I started Googling. You know what I'm talking about. You're facing a problem problem, so you start searching for anything online that could help you fix your problem. The internet was a wonderful tool for me at this moment. Without it, I'd be dead months ago. I was kicked out of Walmart for loitering, but I continued my research in my car. I'd turn the car on every once in a while to drive around to charge my battery. That night, I learned a lot about hacking phones, Android, surveillance, police procedure, legal procedure, and all kinds of subjects that related to my situation. I took dutiful notes and outlined areas for further research and learning. During my research, I found a list of apps that could be used for hacking someone's phone. And I checked my installed applications, and can you guess what I found buried in my phone? One of those apps. David fucking King had been eavesdropping and tracking me through my phone. Instead of deleting the app, however, I kept it. It could be useful in the future. I also researched the company David apparently worked for. It was a larger company that served several states, providing both long and short distance transport of valuable goods. This was good information. If his job was to handle valuable goods, then it could be an easy way to get him fired or even charged if some of it disappeared from his truck. His truck was long gone by then, so I had no current opportunity. During all hours of the night, Hernandez would call me. So would Katie's mom. I ignored them both. That was a big mistake. I'll later learn. When the sun rose, I didn't feel tired. I felt empowered. Finally, I knew more about my situation, and enough to be useful. I knew how to get those hard drives to the police legally, but I'd need Clark and Hernandez's help. I never got to use that plan, though. Reality caught up with me. David moved too quickly. I was driving to my apartment to see if I could brush my teeth and take a shower at least before work that day. When my phone buzzed, it was Hernandez. I answered it reluctantly, prepared to get an earful for ignoring him all night. Xander, where are you? Driving to my apartment. You need to come down to the police station. Right away. Why? What's up? It's bad. Confused, I hung up and turned right, heading towards the police station. I walked into the police station lobby to find Hernandez waiting for me. Did Isaac's body turn up or anything? I asked, looking at his worried expression. They're still analyzing it, he said. Then he took a deep breath. Some new development has come up. I gave him a questioning look, and then felt cold metal click around my right wrist. I reacted, but the two cops who had flanked me pulled my arms together. The metal clicked around my other wrist, handcuffing me. What the hell? I shouted. The policemen each gripped one of my arms. Xander, I know you're upset about everything that's going on, Hernandez said quietly. But what you did went way too far. What the fuck are you talking about? Hernandez held up a bag containing a phone. He used the touchscreen through the bag and navigated to the phone's voicemail. The voicemail was jolty and sounded like whoever had the phone was running. Wind struck the mic, making it hard to hear in places, but the voice was unmistakable. It was mine. Oh, fuck you, jackass. You ruined my credit, stole my money, hacked my accounts. You stole my shit. I'm going to kill you. You think I need motivation to hurt you? I'm going to kill you, you son of a bitch. You'll burn in hell. You'll burn. My heart shuddered a bit. I had had said those things. I had literally said those things. The night David chased us and pinned me to the table, I'd said every word. The bastard had been recording the whole thing, and now had edited it into a threatening voicemail. David King's home burned down last night, he said slowly, watching me, gauging me. David and his mother were still inside. Firefighters found David alive, and we were able to pull him out, but his mother was already dead. That voicemail was sent to his phone from yours at around the time the firefighters estimate the fire started. I lost my breath. My eyes watered. The world closed in. I couldn't speak, couldn't defend myself, couldn't explain. Xander Jones, you're under arrest.